Good afternoon. I am Kimberly Garnett. I am co-host with Jonathan Rogoff with this team, the Indivisible Illinois Social Justice Alliance. And welcome today to our Suppression Free Democracy event. You will be able to find us, the Social Justice Alliance, on Facebook. We are also on Twitter. And if you need to contact us at any time, you can contact us at iasja@indivisible.il.com. I will drop all of this information for you to be able to follow us in the link. And with that, I will be happy to turn over this event to our co-host and partner, Jonathan Rogoff.
Hello, everyone. So welcome to our second month of our suppression-free democracy roadmap to 2022. Thanks, Kim, and thanks, Rose, for a lot of this content who did this. And so thank you, everyone, for being here. As Kim mentioned, I'm Jonathan Rogoff. I'm the co-leader of this group. My pronouns are he, him. We know that there are votes that are being suppressed around this country. A lot of those votes are Black, brown, and youth votes. And so it is a challenging time in our history, and it will take all of us to counter it. So today we're going to talk about strategy and action, and we're looking for feedback. So if you have questions, please place them in the chat. We'll take them at the end of the session. And we'll get to them a little later, but I want to briefly introduce our partners: Matt from Swing Left, Michelle from West Dems, and Scott from Jones Democracy Cafe. We have put together a strategy that was quite successful from 2018 to 2020, so we're ready to do it again. And so here we're trying to get that started. So with that said, here are some of our partners, and then the ones that I didn't mention down at the bottom there are where we pulled are also partners that are either silent partners today or were definitely instrumental in putting some of this strategy together. Just to start with, one of the things we're focusing on is that it's going to take a wide coalition, and it must be a multi-ethnic or multicultural, multi-ethnic coalition, including all races, generations, and religious affiliations. Must include all sexual orientations and gender identities. And it must be the disadvantaged and privileged people from all religions. And so there are great organizations like the Poor People's Campaign that are already doing some of this. And, and even President Obama and stuff have talked about that we're going to have to take to the streets, and it's going to have to be through organizations like this that we're going to maintain or take back, depending on where your view is, our democracy. Unfortunately, it looks like that the GOP lessons from 2020 were not that they need to reach out to people of color, but more that it's too easy for them to vote, and as well as that it's harder than they thought to overturn the results of the popular vote. So they're going to double down on the latter and not reach out to the former. Appears to be where we're going, even with the census data that just came out that says even more so that the demographics of this country are shifting. But so most of us are probably familiar with a lot of these actions. There's been a big propaganda campaign with the big lie, and and then of course all the talk about Antifa and socialism and CRT and all that fun stuff. So there's a lot of dark money involved, as we know. There's the gerrymandering which is going to become big in the news here over the next month or two as we get into this whole redistricting season. And so this is all attacks on our freedom to vote. And then there are, the actions of what's going on with SCOTUS and with the Supreme Court, and what's going on in terms of what they've been doing in terms of the voting rights amendment, and then other recent rulings that just seem to continually say that Congress has to act, and of course Congress so far is not acting. So we need to make that happen, and obviously the filibuster plays into all of that. Again, I think it's all stuff most of us are familiar with. All right, so let's delve a little more deeply into what we're talking about. We're talking about some of these gerrymandered state legislatures. These are the battleground states, and obviously the ones that are most at risk are Arizona, Florida, Georgia, and Texas, where they have the trifecta, and Republicans have trifecta and can do whatever they want, and have been, as we have seen, especially in in Georgia with the voting rights, and then obviously on the COVID side and other stuff with Florida and Texas, and then of course the crazy audit, not non-audit audit thing that happened in Arizona. Um, so they're attacking freedom to vote by attacking vote by mail, drop boxes, and curbside voting. They're trying to control the certifications of elections in 2022. They're criminalizing water distribution, ballot collection, and they're protesting election officials and threatening them. So these individuals, election officials, who are the backbones of our elections, are quitting in droves and being replaced by these fringe characters because of these threats. We need to make sure that's not happening. And then, yeah, as I mentioned, the scam review in Arizona, and potentially elsewhere. So it's all one big lie, but it all, it's just taking different forms over the years. Initially we had slave states, then we had Confederacy, then we had Jim Crow, and then, on and on. And most recently, MAGA. And it goes beyond the Republican Party. There's media, activist organizations, governments, all different factions are involved. And so, what's happened with broadcast news and radio, as well as then social media and stuff, has all put us in the position that we're in today. And so it's white evangelicals and paramilitary groups are a lot of the key players here: Proud Boys, Three Percenters, Oath Keepers, et cetera. They're not the fringe anymore. They're becoming more, that is the Republican Party. They have taken it over. And they're where that party is going. There's also, we're seeing that a lot of these people have infiltrated our law enforcement and our military. State and local governments have become more aggressive in suppressing vote, as well as social and economic rights. And then Trump, of course, packed the court. So we've got court stuff to worry about. And then we just have to be awake and aware to all these different aspects of things. I'm going to go real quick through these, but obviously there's a lot of terms that may sound bad or may sound moderate, whatever. But certainly when you see the videos of what these things are, a lot worse than what the picture says a heck of a lot more than what the words say. Similarly, these are just other terms that are used to very much sugarcoat and not cover what they were really all about. And again, just, this is what the pictures that are different yet the same all through history. And then we have, so these are the 5 steps that we need to be taking in order to win the White House. So we have to get the vote. We have to not only win the vote, which seemed to be what we had been doing in the past, but now we have to win the count. We have to win the certification. When it's presidential, we have to win the Electoral College. And then, of course, we have to win in Congress because of the whole thing, if they could get a tie and then toss it to Congress type of scenario again with the presidential race. So now we're going, this is what the map looked like. So in case anyone forgot, this was our brilliant map from Biden winning in November 3rd. Then we have just what happens in 2024 if Arizona and Georgia can't certify in time because of all these roadblocks and everything that are there. So now we still barely, if the rest of the map stays exactly the same, Democrats or Biden could barely win re-election, assuming he's running for re-election. But then obviously in any of these scenarios, if somehow with what Republicans are doing, if we lose Arizona and Georgia, then we have to, it again comes down to the Rust Belt trifecta of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. We lose any one of those, we lose the presidency. So here is a list of states. I'm not certain if this is up to date. I hope this is up to date in terms of the states with the new restrictive laws. I hope there aren't any new ones, but not certain of that. But so these are all the ones that are they talk about 48 states that have the laws that those laws are floating around, and Illinois is certainly even one of them. But Illinois is actually expanding the right to vote. So those things are sitting in there, but thankfully they're not moving in Illinois. But obviously in some of these other states, that not only are moving, a lot of them have gotten passed, and that's the problem. So obviously, yeah, we've removed Trump, but our democracy is still incredibly fragile. Honestly, in some ways, may feel more fragile now than it did while he was still in office, and we didn't realize what all was going on behind the scenes. But at least we know what's going on behind the scenes now. But despite all these challenges, there are a number of big wins that we've had so far in 2020. We do have we passed the COVID relief package. We've gotten we've got the vaccines out now for those who are taking them. We've got environmental protections, economic result, and a historically diverse cabinet. So what needs to be done? Obviously, the first thing we need to do is we need to activate our base. We need to make sure that people aren't, that the people who turned out in 2020, the people who are fired up, stay fired up and realize that it's not over, it's just beginning. We then need to persuade those who are conflicted, and go back and forth and aren't necessarily following the different things or see valid points from various sides and so forth. That's obviously not where we need to make sure those voters are those swing voters are a dwindling portion, but they're still a portion we shouldn't entirely count out. So, because certainly the other side is definitely not, with their extreme views, are definitely pushing those voters more toward us, assuming we are welcoming to them. So yes, so then obviously this last piece, we have to marginalize them, and that's, in some ways they're marginalizing themselves, but we need to make sure that we're calling that out and make sure that that's that marginalization and that radical direction they're going is very clear to everyone. So how do we win? We need to follow the lead of great organizers such as Stacey Abrams and make sure progressive voters are registered and at the right address and with the right name and in massive numbers. And so this is how everyone here can get involved. In Illinois, we need to get as many voters as possible on the permanent vote by mail list, which is part of the new law that was recently passed. Locally, if you want to register people to vote, join IL Vote, a bona fide certified IL voter registration organization. They are looking for volunteers, and that is another group that's partnered with Indivisible Illinois and that we work closely with. So that is a great group to sign up with if you're looking to register people to vote. Neighbors Who Vote and Ballot Z are also organizations worthy of your time and that we partner with quite a bit. All these links will allow you to click and find out more. And the link to this whole deck will be shared at the end of the meeting. So you can click through all of this. Chicago Votes is another group that has a great operation. And then for national efforts, Field Team 6 is a great one to look at. And so these are all projects and groups that we have worked with before. Here's some information from Ballot Z on how to reach the youth vote. I'm going to let this slide largely speak for itself, and I think I'm running a little slow on time, so I'm going to pop through that. How we win. We need massive voter engagement. GOP organizes year-round. The Democrats traditionally, or the progressives, or whatever we want to call ourselves, have not quite so much done that. So we need to do a better job of that, of reaching out and being in these communities and making sure that people feel that we're engaged and not just to help them, not just seeking their votes. Certainly don't have all the answers, but if we work together and we partner with these folks, we're going to find them together. Safe canvassing has already started in Illinois, in the Illinois 3rd District to re-elect Marie Newman. We also recommend canvassing for reps Underwood and Caston. If you're not from Illinois, obviously there's other reps to support in other states. We do need phone bankers. So if you have thought about phone banking, considered phone banking, we need you. But I will let Scott talk more about that later. And then there's a lot of work going on in support of trying to get something passed in terms of We the People and John Lewis voting rights, getting these things pushed forward. Lots of phone banks on that. There's also text banking and options for that. Terry from Bend the Arc in Champaign is doing a lot of text banking and working with Common Cause. We've also got groups that are helping to write letters to the editor. And then Swing Left has their Vote Forward letter writing program. So I think we're looking for someone locally to lead that effort. If that interests you, let us know. We know what we're seeing very much what discrimination looks like. I think a lot of us have seen that. I'm going to fly through this. This is some of what the For the People Act would do. Obviously, this is going to be a big thing after, supposedly a huge thing, push on this after this recess that has just started. And then, yep, so we've got people out in the streets getting the job done. Marie Newman, which I mentioned, Sean Caston, I mentioned, Lauren Underwood, not to dismiss any of these, just wanting to catch up on time. And then Governor Pritzker is also going to run again in 2022. And so that's its own, that's a whole nother thing that we need to deal with here in Illinois, is see who and what is emerging in opposition to him and making sure that we're not going backwards in the state at the governor level. So all that being done, I apologize for being a little bit over on time, but I will now pass it over to Matt from Swing Left. Take it away, Matt.
Buddy. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Glad to be with you all. I'm joining tonight or this afternoon from Virginia Beach, where I've just taken a break from knocking doors for our Democratic candidates in the critical Virginia elections this year. So I'm going to join you for a few minutes, share some of what we're up to and what we're working on, and then I'm going to get back out to the voters, because John was just saying, it's we cannot take anything for granted. We need to make this engagement a sustainable, persistent part of our lives, not something we do every 2 or 4 years. So anyway, let's dive in, and I'll tell you a little bit about Swing Left. So Swing Left exists to help the grassroots have the biggest impact possible on the races that are most likely to determine the balance of power in our country. So we started in 2018, a single focus of helping Democrats flip the United States House, because we felt, and I believe we were right, that was the single thing that opponents of the incoming administration could do to most blunt the impact of their agenda and hold them accountable for their wrongdoing. Of course, the politics has changed over the past few years, so the priorities have changed. So now our political priorities, as we see them, is first defending the Democratic trifecta in Virginia. Folks, here in the great Commonwealth of Virginia, Democrats have made incredible progress, set an example for what the whole country can do over the last 2 years. I'm sitting right now in a woman named Nancy Guy's district. She won by 41 votes in Virginia 2 years ago and helped build the Democratic majority that has since ended the death penalty, expanded the minimum wage, expanded access to healthcare through Medicaid and other programs, passed gun violence prevention legislation, done so much to move this state forward. It is now a model for the country on issue after issue after issue, climate change, everything, except for labor rights, but we'll come back to that. We got more work to do there. But it could all come crashing down if we lose this year. And so it has huge ramifications for the residents of the Commonwealth of Virginia, but it has huge ramifications for everybody, because what happens here is a model for the rest of the country. The attention of the country is trained on Virginia in these off years because it's the only thing on the ballot. It's the only state that has major elections. I mean, New Jersey also, but it kind of doesn't count. It's really important. It's going to be viewed as the first real test of the Biden administration and their political agenda. So that's our priority this year, and I'll talk in a moment about ways that you all can get plugged into that. Jonathan already teased it. Then in 2022, our priority is to hold the United States Senate and the United States House so we can continue to make progress in the Biden administration. And then beyond that, we want to build power in the state. So I'll speak briefly about each of those. So first, the United States Senate, we've got 2 wonderful United States senators that we just elected that we will have to fight to keep in the United States Senate for a full term. Both Mark Kelly and Raphael Warnock were finishing off a term, so they will have to run again in 2022. Those are 2 critical states, and we want to win there. But we also have great pickup opportunities in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, in North Carolina, possibly in Ohio and Florida as well. We may have some defensive needs in New Hampshire and Nevada. We will see. So the Senate is very much in play, and we've got some critical races in your neck of the woods there. Then on the gubernatorial side, Tony Evers up for re-election in Wisconsin. Again, a critical state, critical race. And we might have some good pickup opportunities in Florida and Georgia. We all know who'd like to be our nominee in Georgia. Let's go. We'll have a number of House targets, and you all already spoke about several likely targets. Of course, we don't know what the districts are going to look like yet. The redistricting process is just getting started, and it will be delayed. But there will, I'm sure, be many targets either in Illinois or neighboring Illinois. And so you can see sort of where we're projecting that. State legislative targets. The great state of Michigan is the only one in your neck of the woods, but we have a short-term opportunity in the next 2 or 4 years to flip the state house in Michigan, which would go a long way toward moving Michigan some of the draconian policies that they had been suffering. And of course, they have Gretchen Whitmer in the governor's office, but with the Republicans controlling the legislature, it is really preventing a lot of progress there. So that's a good opportunity for us to expand democratic power in the states, which is going to be in our imperative over the next decade. It all starts with Virginia. We have 10 candidates in the House of Delegates that we believe are most likely to determine the control of the state legislature this year. You can get started calling into Virginia. I really strongly recommend it. We're having critically important conversations. A lot of voters, are just so glad to be, out of the Trump era, and I think they think that they can relax. But we need to talk to them and remind them that there's a lot still at stake. These 10 candidates are awesome. I got a chance to meet a couple of them this morning. And so anyway, lots of great opportunities to engage there, including writing letters to voters through Vote Forward, which is our voter contact affiliate. Vote Forward letters are very easy. They're fast. They are highly effective. Each of the letter writing campaigns is set up as a randomized control trial, so we know that they're effective, significantly more effective than postcards, pretty equivalent to knocking on doors, honestly. And of course, you can do it from anywhere. So we're in the midst, actually, I think there's one more slide about this. If you go to the next slide for me, we're in the midst of a campaign to send 1.5 million letters to Virginia voters this year, encouraging them to request an absentee ballot and to go vote. We'd love to have your support. It is, as I said, it's an easy thing to do. You can adopt 20 letters, write one a day until you get them done. Our first mail date is September 18th. That's the deadline to get letters related to encouraging people to request absentee ballots in the mail. And then we'll have another on October, I believe it's October 16th for the final Hey Go Vote letters. As I said, these are fun. These are great to do as a group or as individually. You can just download them from your computer and print them off yourself, so there's no logistics to figure out. And they're really highly effective. So, and we will be doing many, many millions more.
Thank you, Matt. So now I think we're handing it over to, is it Andrea with Wisdoms? Awesome.
Correct. Yes. Thank you so much. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrea. I also go by Dre. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I am here today to talk about our big plan that we have here in Wisconsin to really strengthen our progressive roots that we have. And I guess to start off, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the plan that we have, and then also some important dates that we have. And a really important subject is also going to be our transition to in-person and how we plan to tackle that as well. So I think overall in the presentations we've had today, we've noticed that Wisconsin does come up quite a bit. We are neighbors to you folks. So any and all help that you have and provide us is just so important to us, and we value it so much. I'm actually located right now in Lake Geneva, so I'm super, super close to Illinois. I can just walk 5 minutes and I'd probably be in Illinois. So the neighborhood support is so appreciated. So starting to talk about the road ahead that we have. So we are going to have different phases in order to transition back to in-person. So this is a big strategy that was made a few months ago in order to have a safe return to in-person, and really to also create a good and solid infrastructure coming into the Tony Evers campaign. So overall, what we've been doing these past few months is strengthening the relationships that we have with voters, creating a very solid foundation for that. We have different sessions that we do to just maintain contact with voters, but we also have a lot of sessions that are related for voters to actually do activist type of work, so that volunteers can, get their hands dirty and do and progress and change. So that is how we've been tackling these past few months. We've been doing listening sessions and volunteering phone banks. So what's changing up a little bit as we shift gears in September is actually we're going to change gears. We're going to keep doing relationship and infrastructure building, but we're starting to go into our 1 year to win mentality, which basically means we're going to be doing a lot more canvassing and phone banking. It's a lot more action driven. So as opposed to relationship building, we still have that component, but we really, really are starting to dive deep into really important issues that constituents find important, so that come in a year, they do go to the polls and they do start voting and they do vote, right? So as I'm talking about the plan, this is really the Wisconsin plan that we have in order to do this change, right? So we've completed phase one. Phase one was some trials on canvassing in different parts of the state, mainly in the Madison area, and then smaller districts where they had smaller campaigns going on. So now we're currently in phase two, so that's the middle part, and you'll see it's weekends of action. That's really what our main event is for the next few months. This is our way of doing canvassing and phone banking work, and I'll expand a little bit about that. And that's where we really, really need help. So that is where we will have our call to action. So our next event will be on the 21st and 22nd. Like I said, I'll dive deep a little bit in that in a sec. But then after that, once we go back into September, November time, that's where we're really going to shift gears, and it's not going to be as much relationship building anymore. It's going to be a lot more action items, a lot more hitting the streets, hitting the dialer, and making sure that we're talking to all of our constituents in Wisconsin. So this is how we've basically separated this transition to in-person. So like I said, the first phase we did in a few different areas in Wisconsin to basically start getting back to in-person and practicing that. Now with our weekend of action coming up in 2 weeks, we actually have our first set of in-person canvassing and distributed canvassing, which is our two approaches of doing in-person work. For all of these approaches, we are following CDC guidelines, so wearing masks, making sure that everything is sanitized, basically just making sure everybody's safe, and it's completely voluntary. So if folks don't feel comfortable going out into the world and doing outdoor canvassing, then they can also hit the dialer as well. So there's definitely ways that volunteers can get involved, even if they don't feel comfortable doing canvassing quite yet. And then, like I said, in a few months, we're going to shift gears and start doing more of that phone banking and canvassing pretty heavily in order to speak to as many constituents as we can. So this is the program that we have for canvassing and phone banking. As we dive into what the actual program consists of, we can go to the next slide. It's called the Trident Program. And basically, these are the three ways that as volunteers, if you want to get involved, these are the three ways that you can get involved. So the first way is doing in-person canvas launches. So this is a version of the three different types of canvassing that we'll do. So first, the in-person canvassing launches will be socially distanced. All of these are going to be socially distanced, like I said, following all CDC guidelines. For this one, we'll be giving folks paper lists so that they can hit their doors. And then the next one is doing phone lists. So they're still in person doing canvassing, but the lists are on their phone. So if they have the ability to download Minivan, then they can do that canvassing work with their phone. For both of these, they can do those by their home. So let's just say we have somebody in Racine that wants to volunteer, they want to get involved, but they don't want to drive up to South Milwaukee to volunteer with our immediate team. Then they would get a phone list either through paper or through their phone, and they can go to their neighborhood and knock on their neighborhood's doors. So it's an easier way for people to not, drive anywhere. But then the other version, if people want to do a more community related type of volunteering, then we have then we have staging locations. So then at the staging locations, we actually have a group of people that volunteer, and we actually have Dale on the line. So Dale is actually going to be part of this program as well. And at our staging locations, we are doing the same thing, distributing either paper or application type of lists, and then everybody kind of walks together and does the canvassing together. So those are some ways that volunteers can get involved in person if they feel comfortable. If not, we also have virtual staging locations, and at those virtual staging locations, we will do calls with our phones. So then folks are completely safe and comfortable at home as well. So those are the 3 different ways that volunteers can get involved during these next few months. So then if you're looking to get involved, and we know we need it, I know that we've mentioned earlier, phone banking is a really, really big and important way that we can reach constituents. We do have a few ways that you can get involved. So I have those links there. I'm also going to drop some links in the chat box for the events that we have going on. These are all in relation to canvassing or phone banking, but then you'll also see one of the links that I'm dropping is actually for a listening session that we're going to have. So it was mentioned earlier by Jonathan that critical race theory is an important subject that we currently have going on right now. So the conversation that we're going to have is on August 19th at 2 p.m. and it's in regards to critical race theory. We're going to have a professor from UWM lead that conversation. And then afterwards, we're also doing calls as well. So that's also a really great way that you can get involved. But there's definitely so many canvassing, phone banking, just different volunteering opportunities where we need folks to start getting their hands dirty and start mobilizing our communities. So if you have any availability, I really urge you to check it out. And then if any of that doesn't work out for you, please email me, text me, call me. I put my contact information there as well, and I'd be happy to chat with you. Just last night, I was talking to a doctor from Brookfield, Wisconsin, and he wanted to get involved with South Milwaukee and the Democratic Party in South Milwaukee. And he was telling me that he can't do phone banking, he can't do canvassing, but he would love to host a listening session on the new Delta variant and the new variants that we have with the coronavirus. And he would like to break it down for our volunteers so that volunteers can then be advocates for wearing masks. And I was like, that's awesome. We would love to have a conversation like that. So my point is, if you can't volunteer in any of these ways, there's definitely ways that we can get you to be working with us and be part of the movement. But that is all that I have. I believe that is my last slide. Like I said, my contact info is there, but it was a pleasure speaking with everybody, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Drake. So now we're going to turn it over to Jones Democracy, to Scott, to talk about Jones Democracy Cafe and some of the wonderful phone banking opportunities that we have going on.
So welcome. I am a co-founder of Jones Democracy Cafe. Here's our two the 2 organizations we partner with, Common Cause and Center for Common Ground, that operate phone banks that we phone banking campaigns that we train on at our phone banks. So here's who we are, Jones Democracy Cafe. We're a collective of volunteers from all around the country, but basically we're a national organization. We met during the Georgia runoff, and we use online techniques to advocate for democracy in the U.S., equal rights, and the honest truth, which is hard to come by these days. Our offices are located in the Northeast and in Northern California, where I'm located. We provide guidance on training that empowers volunteers with an emphasis on clarity, confidence, and self-satisfaction to help organizations more quickly achieve success. And we work really hard to support those who may initially struggle, who may be a little overwhelmed with the technology or the tools. We train a lot of retired folks, which takes a little longer than the younger folks because they're not as familiar with the technology. But once you get a retired person over the hump of learning how to use the technology, they will work long and hard. Some of our most prolific volunteers who do the most calling are retired folks that it took a while to train. Here's some of the specific things that our phone banks offer. We've got experienced trainers. We're very, very picky about the trainers we use. We We vet all the trainers before we invite them to come. We orient them. Besides that, we almost always have a dedicated tech support person, as I am. We do customized trainings. We'll take training materials that organizations put together, and then we will make a lot of improvements and bring them back to the organizations. We use real-time feedback. We turn our debriefs into focus groups, and oftentimes we'll have our best callers work with us on new phone bank scripting ideas to try to make the phone banks work better. Typically in a phone bank, we'll have multiple campaigns going on. We're training different campaigns in different breakout rooms so the callers get to select the campaigns they do. As is typical, we send out weekly announcements to try to get people fired up that talk about the campaigns we're doing. During the year, during our Thursday phone banks, we have news updates with a focus on democracy issues, with a focus on things you might not hear watching the mainstream media. We're on a little bit of a summer break, so we're not doing that for the next month, but then we'll be restarting it in the fall. And so at our phone banks, we have trainings in breakout rooms for small groups, but those people who need extra help, needed to go slower, will do one-on-one training. So here's the organizations we're aligned with: Center for Common Ground, who has a mission of engaging disenfranchised voters. They focus on states and districts of large numbers of people of color. We partner with Common Cause because they're very, very focused on democracy rights, even in states where there aren't a lot of people of color. For example, West Virginia, which you will hear about. Swing Left Peninsula is a large swing left organization that we've been partnering with on Saturday phone banks. Indivisible, Illinois, which is why I'm here today, and we're open to partnerships in the future. So here's some of the campaigns we've done in the past. We fought hard against the voter suppression laws in the state legislatures in Georgia, Arizona, and Texas. We would regularly fill up legislators' voicemail. We had some small successes. Some of the really bad things didn't end up in the bills, but some bad bills got passed. I got to admit it. We've done get out the vote in the Virginia primary, also in the New York primary. We work with We the Plug though to get people engaged in their electric co-ops and the board so they don't get screwed. And we've been doing postcarding with Center for Common Ground. Here's our current and upcoming campaigns. Currently, we're doing 2 S1, HR1 campaigns, Arizona and West Virginia, because that's Manchin Cinema, the 2 biggest roadblocks to getting S1 passed in the Senate. We've been fighting gerrymandering in Georgia. Upcoming, we're doing a really interesting thing. We're basically in agreement with Matt that Virginia is key. It's a bellwether state. We need to protect the trifecta. So Black Voters Matter is texting voters who aren't registered, and we're going to be a part of a randomized trial to test how could you augment text banking. So some people will be text banked only. Some people will get a phone call after the text bank. Some people will get a phone call and digital ads. We're going to compare those 3 populations and try to figure out what is the impact of adding phone banking to text banking. So that's going to be really interesting. So we can tell our volunteers what really works. We hope to work on the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and DC statehood. Okay, I want to give you a little update on the status of S1. It has been in the news a little bit. It was overshadowed by infrastructure. But there was after the infrastructure votes, there were some procedural votes on S1. They failed because of the filibuster. And now the Senate is on recess. The key thing to know is that earlier, Manchin was not in favor of S1. He has now voted for S1 twice. He's working on a compromise version with Merkley, Klobuchar, and Warnock, all of which are good. Warnock in particular is focusing on adding language to prevent the takeover of election boards, which is what's going on in Georgia right now. in Fulton County, which includes Atlanta. The Republican-controlled state legislature trying to take over that election board, and so Warnock from Georgia is working on language to address that. Manchin claims that with the compromise version, he can get Republican votes, and so we're going to give him enough rope to hang himself. And when that doesn't work, we're going to pressure him to come up with a carve out for the filibuster. Schumer has said that his first priority after the Senate recess, which ends, I think, September 12th or so, is the compromise S1 bill. What Stacey Abrams says is we cannot let this recess go to waste. There's basically the senators they're no longer obsessed about infrastructure. They're gotten out of the DC bubble. They're back home. They're thinking about and talking to their constituents. Now's when we got to pressure them. If we let up on S1, they're going to say, "Oh, okay, people don't really care about it, so we're not going to let up on S1." There's going to be over 100 events. The pressure centers during recess. We want to keep those phone calls coming into key state, and the way we do that is with phone banking. And so, people want to know, why should I phone bank? Isn't that hard? Well, with Center for Common Ground, we're actually reaching receptive people of color. That is easier phone banking, for example, in Arizona. Even when we don't have wins, we're alerting voters to the state and local issues. We get them thinking about down ballot races, so they're going to vote better. The cool thing about phone banking, especially this legislative lobbying we're doing, is we help a voter right there on the spot leave a message with their legislator, pardon me. And perfect strangers will thank you for helping them find their voice. Periodically, our phone bank breaks into tears when we fill up a legislator's voicemail. That is a real feeling of a compliment. You get immediate gratification. So those of you who say, "Well, I'm not sure if phone banking is for me. I'm a bit of an introvert." I put a link in chat. Nice little document, phone banking for introverts. Introverts will save the world, or at least will make phone calls to try it. So here's our phone banking. We're going on a little bit of a summer schedule. So we temporarily renamed ourselves Jones Democracy Summer Cafe. It doesn't it doesn't have all the frills and a more limited menu, but still has good training. So I will put the mobilized links in chat. After this talk, I'm going to be doing a phone bank this afternoon. This afternoon, we're doing S1 into both West Virginia and Arizona, but in the subsequent weeks, we're only going to be training on West Virginia. But we will let experienced callers come and be a part of the debrief and answer questions. We just won't be doing training on Arizona. One of the cool things we're doing now is we're calling past Common Cause volunteers to sign them up for making S1 calls. And so those of you who don't like calling maybe more conservative voters who sometimes say weird things, you can call Common Cause volunteers who will be completely in alignment with you and sign them up to do the phone banking you're not sure you want to do. So that is a nice opportunity. We have that opportunity on Thursdays. Also, on Thursdays, we have a few more campaigns. We're still fighting gerrymandering in Georgia, and in a couple of weeks we're going to start doing that voter registration in West Virginia. That's a part of the randomized trial. I think that's it, but let's see what the next slide is. Oh, that looks like a repeat. Yes, I am done. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And I believe at this point, we are going to stop sharing, and I'm going to introduce our wonderful picnic table of friends out there in the northwest suburbs of Illinois. Bill Davis and Lenny and some others are out there. So we'd like to hear from you guys and how you're doing. And
that it's very cool to have you folks join us this way.
It's wonderful to be there, to be part of a beautiful environment.
All right. Can you hear us now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, we're just getting the picnic going. Just started at 1, and it took us a little while to get the sign on, unfortunately, but we started to pick up. We've got a group that's growing. Indivisible members from across Chicagoland have joined. Lenny is here from I-9. Just I'm kind of looking across the way. There's 4 or 5 other people from the various groups that I've seen. Sitting right here, we have Jim McGrath, who heads up our Restore Our Democracy group. They're working on getting money out of politics, S1, HR4. We've got Mark Lundholm that heads up our climate change group. And a very important person is Christine. At the end, she's the one that Kim sends up the video of today's call, and she edits it. She'll probably edit this portion out, but and then we can send it out to our entire membership out in the Northwest burbs and across the progressive landscape of the country. So it's great to have you guys here. Thank you for all your time and your presentation. By the way, Lenny is down interviewing 3 of the young ladies from the March for Our Lives from Palatine, who was on this call. Was that Monday night? It was Monday night. Monday night. So this is the who's who, the place to be.
Awesome. Thanks, Bill. Glad that you guys are doing that NWSOFA gathering and taking advantage of the weather and in a relatively safe. We all know being outside is relatively safe, and certainly after our Lollapalooza experiment that everyone here in Chicago was quite concerned about, that seems to have gone off pretty darn well without becoming a spreader event. So there's more confirming evidence to some of that. So it's nice to actually see things work in our favor with this whole thing for once, with the weather and everything cooperating. So that is awesome to see you guys. So I will now open it up to anyone who has any questions, or I don't know if there's anything I missed, Kim, or anything like that. So just tossing
Oh, this is Dale Nook from Wisconsin. I'll be joining the picnic today, and I just wanted people to get to know me and that we would give you tons of support. Yeah, and we'll give you tons of support if anybody wants to help with that governor's race and the Senate race in Wisconsin. So just I'll see you guys at the picnic in a little bit.
fantastic. Looking forward to it. Yep, I'm hoping to head out there in a little bit myself. Anything else? Any other announcements? Any other questions, comments? Then thank you everyone for listening or for presenting, for everything else. And I will give you back 5 to 7 minutes of your time. And Kim, can you cue the music?